South Africa is going through a major digital transformation. I mean, you can look at that at a country level, you can look at that at a government level, but also industry level. Many companies are, grappling with this transformation, the changes that technology has brought. And as a result, skills are at the center of this. You need skills to be able to successfully transform the country from a digital perspective. And it is with that in mind that while this is happening, it is happening in, how can I put it, maybe in a fragmented way. Everybody is doing, their own thing. There's a lot that is happening in the country, but everybody is doing their own thing. And this has made it very complex to understand what is going on, who's doing what. And with the digital skills framework, the aim is to bring about a shared understanding, shared language, and a shared way of doing things such that we create cohesion in the country around the development of digital skills. And that we all understand the different pathways that we can create for students as well, linking that with industry or industry needs. So that is so critical, and that's why we have this framework as being so imperative, and we would like to see it work. And so our panelists have been introduced, and I'll just go straight to the questions. We have two critical questions that we would like to ask today, and I will be asking each of them. The first one being the potential value of the digital skills framework. In your view, maybe I'll start with, they say ladies first, I'll start with Prof. Kulia. Prof, if you can just give your perspective on the potential value of this digital skills framework or proposed framework, and how you, especially probably from a policy point of view, or how we regulate or self-regulate, maybe you may call it that, and in building that cohesion that we are looking for in terms of developing digital skills. What's your view in terms of the value that we might get out of this?
Sure. So thanks for that, Trevor. I had actually prepared a few slides. I did hear Leona saying that the slides or PowerPoints maybe haven't been the way, but I think it's quite complex to answer that without giving you more context to my environment, which is the world of work, and the regulatory framework for the world of work. So I don't know if you want me to go into that much. Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going into lecture mode now, unfortunately. I hope that's okay. Andy, is that you who's put my slide on? Yes. Or is it Leona? Leona, do you maybe want to advance that? So, I mean, yeah, so for me, it's about distinguishing between the strategy and the framework itself, and then identifying the use of both of those. So I'd be answering both the questions around what is the use and the value of this, and it really requires a bit of an overview of what the strategy does, what the framework does, and then how that relates to what's happening in the world of work and the disruptions in the world of work. So I'm sorry if this is kind of repeating, and I won't go through these slides because I think everybody in the room probably has a good sense of the strategy being very goal orientated. What do we need? We need to empower people and citizens and scholars and workers to be effective and to be able to participate. So it's all about enabling and empowerment. And so the strategy sets this vision, and it provides some tools to achieve this, around funding, around research and monitoring, around awareness. It's around identifying who are the stakeholders that we need to engage with. And so we have this strategy, and we have an implementation program, which provides the foundation for evolving efforts to create a strong digital skills ecosystem. but the strategy consciously, this is the strategy's word, it consciously avoids setting out specific digital skills. And this is really where, for me, the digital skills framework comes in. It's very systematized. You know, in the world of work space, if anyone is involved in those sorts of social dialogue processes that determine what happens in the world of work, it's government and the social partners, organized business, organized labor. And obviously the introduction of digital technology is disruptive in the world of work. And these negotiations need to be informed very much around reskilling workers so that they are able to participate in the world of work. And that requires something like the framework. So it's a systemized, structured approach. And I'm not really talking about the education, which of course feeds into the world of work, but really about what happens in the world of work. And so the framework categorizes sets of digital skills. It gives those parties in the world of work a conceptual framework that's logical around what do we do in our sector. So how do we identify what the needs are? What are the competencies? And it provides both a really high level digital literacy skills that, you know, everyone, regardless of how you engage with the world of work, need to acquire and what the competencies would be for that. But then it also provides the space to think about you know, upscaling this to the sectors and to have sector frameworks. So it's really much more of a scaffolding and a planning tool. And of course, it couldn't work without having a strategy which sets out the goals for empowerment and sets out, you know, ways of identifying stakeholders, ensuring coherence in the rollout. So Leona, if you can maybe just advance to the next slide, and please tell me if I'm running out of time. But this is really where I would see both the strategy and the framework playing an important role in the world of work. So technology is disruptive. It's impacting on how work is organized and how work is performed. And so Trevor, you know, used terms like fragmentation. That's not only happening in this discussion. I mean, we used to have, you know, the kind of classical Ford model of production happening in a factory. And now we're seeing this massive fragmentation of how work is performed, and the introduction of work on a digital platform. You know, increasingly higher percentages of our workforce don't even have a person on the other side of their employment relationship. They may be not even employees, but they're fundamentally engaged in the world of work. And so that, you know, even to participate in the economy requires these digital skills, but it's also incredibly disruptive on multiple levels. It impacts on workers' rights, all of us, you know, our rights to privacy. Digital tools introduce, you know, massive potential for undermining rights in the world of work, which I know that's a bit of a separate issue to the skills development one, but it kind of relates to how do we make sure that we roll this out in a way that's not disruptive and undermining. You know, workplaces will become increasingly dehumanized unless digital skills are both acquired and applied in a manner that's fair. So there's a lot of disruption happening, and that's going to happen. And not only is it this advanced technology in the world of work, but of course our commitment and our increasing need, a fragile planet, to move in a sustainable manner towards a low carbon economy, which, you know, the concepts of just transition there. This has to be negotiated in the world of work, and it's fundamentally you know, threatening to jobs, automation, just transitions. There's whole sectors that are impacted by this. And so obviously there will be resistance to this from workers and from trade unions and from organized labor. So there has to be negotiations, and social dialogue, of course, is at the heart of how we engage in South Africa. So this is where both the strategy and the framework are really important aspects to those negotiations that are ongoing, but also ramping up now. So in the regulatory space for labor and business, you know, there are law reforms processes happening at NEDLAC, and there are master plans for sectors, and you know, these take into account both technology and move to low carbon economy. So the framework is a really important part of those negotiations. and yeah, happening at multiple levels and in multiple contexts. Restructuring is happening within organizations. You know, there must be a skills development plan. Retrenchments, you know, require companies to engage around, you know, what is an alternative to dismissals. So it's about acquiring digital skills so that workers remain relevant in the world of work. And for those, you know, for those purposes in that space, the framework is really important. So Leona, just one more slide. I think I may, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not abusing the platform. I do go into lecture mode. But just in terms of implementation and you know, adoption, how do we operationalize this framework? For me, it really needs to be sufficiently embedded in the regulatory spaces and the reform processes so that it becomes integral to you know, negotiation spaces. It needs to be known within organizations and embedded in the discussions and consultations around those three: restructuring, retrenchments, and just transitions. It also, you know, there needs to be an alignment between the strategy and the framework and the, you know, the kind of decent work objectives. And for me, the framework is very much an operational tool, but the strategy speaks about, you know, envisaging this, envisaging a society that can participate, which ultimately requires decent work. And so, yeah, just really, I hope I haven't spoken too much. Perhaps somebody should mute me. And I hope I've answered your questions, Trevor. Thanks.
Thank you. I think you did very much so, and you even added even more information. And thank you for that. Indeed, you bringing a very important point around, you know, the framework being part of the discussions or negotiations towards, you know, having a common policy direction. So I think that is quite critical, and it's an important takeaway from your input in terms of this. So let me just get to industry. Mr. Andy Sell is representing industry today. He's mainly from the BPO industry, business processes outsourcing. What's your view? What do you think? Because in our view, we can develop skills, but if they are not relevant to the economy, then it becomes just a waste. So from the industry point of view, how do you see this adding value, this skills framework?
Trevor, thanks very much. Firstly, for inviting me to participate in the panel, and then just to be able to share. Just quickly some context in terms of industry that I represent. So I'm wearing two hats. The current role that I play is within the Collective X, which for those who don't know, is a consolidation of an initiative called the Digital Work Accelerator, another initiative called the TechSit Collective. It's a public-private partnership that's driven by industry, and its purpose is to unlock opportunities at scale in the digital economy. So it's all about collective action. And the objective of that particular initiative is to 10x the throughput of digital skills and the skills supply chain from school into employment to absorption. And that would fill gaps that we've got at the moment that will allow the country to repatriate skills where work has been offshored at the moment, or repatriate work, and ultimately will allow South Africa to tap into the potential that we've got, but with those skills to export more services, generate more revenue streams into the country and create more jobs. The other hat that I wear is I run a program called the BPESA Future Skills Platform for BPESA, which is the industry association that represents global business services, or BPO, as you mentioned, where I was the CEO until February last year. And we recognized in business that the challenge of tackling the development of skills, particularly digital skills and workplace skills of the future, at the speed and scale that's required in our master plans that you referred to, Debbie, but just to meet the demand of business, the growing demand of the export market, can't be done by face-to-face work only. It needs to build into what I know this morning's track is all about, which is online learning as well. And so platform-based learning is a key component to that strategy. And so when I share now from a business and an industry point of view, I just want to bring those two components together. So why do we need a digital skills framework? I think first of all, because the development of digital skills starts in schools and it continues throughout a person's life stage beyond employment. I think secondly, this demand for these skills includes, and it was touched on earlier by Leona, it includes basic skills just to enable people to use the digital tools like a learning platform, and others to engage in life and work. But it extends then into sector-specific or user skills. It extends into what I heard you talked about, the ICT practitioner skills. It extends into the skills required by people to innovate, develop, and transform the economy through technologies like 4R technologies. And the demands are common at a lower end and different by segment of the economy, but we all have demands for digital skills. So when we start to think around the framework, you raised the point earlier that we're very disconnected. So we take our guidance, the DCDT, great to have our colleagues on the panel, have charted a strategy, the digital and future skills strategy. That's our true north. And we all play a role in different ways in contributing towards that strategy. But how do we get cohesion and alignment when we don't even see each other? And so we engage through organizations, one of them being the Interdepartmental Coordinating Committee for Digital Skills, which brings role players together to try and achieve an alignment of a level of coordination. And when it comes to a framework like this, let's think about what coordination does it allow us to achieve, even if we don't see each other, but we can still pursue the strategy. So the first is it allows us a common language to understand what the skill requirements of the country are for different roles and different competency levels. Because right now we call the same thing by different names and we don't know what we're talking about. We're confused in our own language. The second thing is that it allows educators to develop content, pathways, journeys that can meet these requirements, where you can link up competency levels throughout that skills value chain. So if someone starts on a program in school, they can continue the program in their job pathway, their learning pathway post-school. They can continue that program in the work environment because it's been clearly identified and mapped out using a framework like this, the different levels of competencies, the different focuses on digital skills and competencies. The third is that it allows us, when we have this huge pressing need for work readiness training that we talk about a lot, but we don't yet know or aren't in agreement on what goes into that. And so when we talk about work readiness training to enable young people to be more ready to participate in the digital economy in the workplace, whether it's as an entrepreneur or an employee, it doesn't matter, or working from home, however it might be, what do we teach them? And so when we look at this framework and we have a look at the digital literacies, we have a look at the digital user skills, we start to get absolute clarity about what should be included in those curricula. And if we can all align around those together with the softer skills and the professional skills, then we're going to have an outcome where young people are entering in the world of work with the right level of digital competence to get started and then to progress. We also have the means to assess people's competency, because what business wants is assurance that when a person has exited a training environment, they want to know that they're competent. They don't want to know what certificate they've got. The certificate needs to be credible and it needs to carry some weight and quality. That's what they're looking for. But if we're all doing different things, how will they know that? And so by making sure that you have a certain standardization in the way that competencies using frameworks like this are assessed, then industry can understand what to expect from that competency outcome. And critically, as I mentioned earlier, it would allow us then to call the same skill by the same name. Everybody, the person who's developing that skill, the people procuring those skills, the people strategizing about those skills, etc. Now in our world, using the digital platform, we've currently got a platform where the content is architected according to we call it a 10 by 10 framework, the 10 most important 4R technologies, and it's all bucketed in there. It's got entry-level, intermediate, and advanced competencies, and the 10 most important professional skills, and we've got all of that content bucketed in there. And we did that because we needed to start quickly and get moving. We haven't got time to waste. But strategically, that's not right. What we want is we want content architecture to a competency framework aligned to the priority occupations and roles in our country where there's the greatest demand. And we want to be able to align around it so that we know that what we're doing is not misaligned to what you're doing, what others are doing, who we don't see. And the framework allows us to do that. And the other reason why framework is so important is it's not prescriptive. It accommodates the multiple requirements of our society, different sectors of the economy, public-private usage, from young people in school to people in the workplace, to ICT professionals, to general users of digital competence. It caters for all of that. And so in our opinion, when we look at a framework like this, and by the way, it also needs to importantly be internationally credible and recognized, and it needs to be locally relevant and accepted and supported. It has to have that from a credibility point of view. And so what we recommend is when you look at the Digital Skills Framework 1, it's an extension on the DIGICOM framework, which the EU have used very successfully to build digital literacies for their citizens. And it adds the Transat competencies. And it also caters for other frameworks like the SAFIR competency framework, which in our world, the Collective X have introduced, focusing specifically on development and implementation of technologies and software and the delivery and operation of them. So it can cater for these things. So I think in closing, a framework gives us the means to all focus our efforts in the right direction, gives us common language, it allows us to set standards for quality of outcomes, it gives everybody clarity around the pathways that they can follow and what exactly is required in each of them. It will allow us to all contribute to the digital and future skills strategy of DCDT and to raise, the level of digital literacy, accelerate the transformation into the digital economy. And also I'd like to suggest it's going to enable us to enhance the level of digital equity in our society, which is completely out of kilter. So let me pause there and hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that valuable input. And out of that, while Mr. John April from the QCTO, the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, gets ready, you did mention the importance of quality, that industry would like to have, a lot of belief in what is produced or the kind of skills that are produced. So, Mr. April, from your point of view, do you see this as this framework as going to add value from a quality assurance point of view, and and how it can assist the country to achieve the transformation it requires?
Thank you, CEO, and thank you to my fellow panelists and to all the guests here, those who are joining us in the cyber world. Yes, for the QCTO, or the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, this framework provides an opportunity for South Africa to respond to the growing demand for digital skills. Our digital illiteracy rate, if there's such a thing, we don't know. But we believe that the occupational qualifications sub-framework, which the Minister published in October 2021, provide that space for this DSF1 to start to address the low levels of digital skills in our country. And as part of our mandate from the QCTO, we are responsible for setting standards, and having such a framework will allow us to set digital standards through our occupational qualifications, part qualifications, and skills programs that we develop, that we manage, that we assess, that we certify, that we also verify in the case where employers need to check the authenticity of the certificates that we do issue. So I believe that whilst it won't be without challenge, the implementation of it, I believe it's the right time for South Africa to look at such a framework. as it might fit in as what we call our occupational full qualifications. It might fit in as a part qualification. It might fit in as what we refer to as a skills program or a standalone type of intervention, which some people refer to as small units of learning or micro credentials. So the new framework, the new occupational qualifications sub-framework, when you look at the DSF-1, we do see some synergies for an easy fit. And when I use the word easy, it is not easy for bureaucrats to understand the easy part. And Andy, as part of the IDCC, knows how difficult it is to bring in a framework of this nature into a system that is broader than just looking at digital skills, because the QCTO doesn't look at digital skills only, but it looks at a range of occupations and other skills that the country might require. So, Chair, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so clearly there's that fit. We do understand that in the broader sense of, or broader scheme of things, we have the NQF, the National Qualifications Framework, which is the driver of how we do the qualifications in the country and how we ensure quality of such qualifications. But of course, the QCTO being responsible for, and that sub-framework for occupational qualifications being responsible for the occupational side of things in the economy, which is so important. It was mentioned earlier in the conference, in the colloquium, that it's not only universities, but TVETs and other spaces of post-schooling education are important as well. It's mentioned by the DG. So DDG, from your side, after having listened to all the comments, maybe you have some comments in terms of the value you see this bringing into the implementation of the National Digital and Future Skills Strategy, and how best you see that happening. Your view on that?
No, thanks, Trevor, for that question. I think at first I need to just take a little bit of a step back from the policy point of view on what we are trying to achieve. As you would understand that our department, which is DCDT, we are tasked into developing the digital society in South Africa. And if now you were to dissect what digital society is, it's a society that uses, ICT from work, to education, to everything, so that is what we are trying to do. And by developing that digital society, then it leads into the digital economy. So those things you will see that they are interlinked, but how then is best to ensure that, you do have this tech service society. So that is why then from 2020, we developed that National Digital Future Skills Strategy, which crafts a pathway for the country to say that this is the direction that we want to take as a country. And also, if we were to look on the implementation plan of it, it makes, reference to say that we do need quite a significant amount of partnerships to make sure that this becomes a reality. Because, there is quite a lot of work that is happening in the space, and but the way that it is happening, it's happening in a way that, it's a little bit disjointed. We did try from the department to develop, and get a digital skills forum, which we're still grappling to get it, approved. And we saw that as one of the mechanisms that can actually pull together, some of these training interventions. But having said that, I feel that, Trevor, the digital skills framework, the one that you've just created now, so it's one of the critical aspects in terms of the delivery of the digital skills, as we see from the department's point of view, because it also highlights some of the gaps that might have been missed in terms of our implementation plan, but also it focuses in making sure that we've got the broader participation of various stakeholders, which is key when we have to look onto, you know, how we can develop these skills in society. And I think I need to mention that as I was listening to the presentation from Dr. Leona as well, that I mean, you start from the bottom, you know, to map all those skills that are required. And I mean, it's quite interesting because when you look on it from the South African point of view, you see that there was a study that was even done in government to say that out of all these close to 1 million people that are employed in government, you've only got about 4,000 that are ICT professionals. And you've got a significant amount of people that are working in government, you know, that do not have the requisite digital skills to ensure that they can actually work as we are trying to move forward with this digitalization agenda. So I feel that, you know, the work that is going to be coming out of this framework is really going to assist us from all stakeholders and making sure that we can pull everybody together. We can have a significant framework that we can all use. I know that I did challenge you, Trevor, a bit in terms of the term framework. As you know, I said before, from the policy point of view, the framework normally comes before the strategy. But those are the semantics that we will deal at a later stage. But I think in its concept, you know, the GSF1 as a concept, we do support it. And also, I think I just need to add that, you know, when we are doing this journey, we need to be deliberate and make sure that we can get the best outcomes, you know, out of this, and make sure that, you know, the society is skilled with all the skills that are going to assist them in terms of, you know, working on this digital economy and participating in the digital economy. So in closing, Trevor, there is a quote that I like, I did pick up from, you know, one of the researchers from MIT, which says that, you know, when digital transformation is done right, you know, it's like turning the caterpillar into a butterfly, you know. So some of us who studied biology, you know, so you'll know that the complex process, you know, of turning a caterpillar into a butterfly. But if it's not done right, you know, all you're gonna have is gonna be like a very fast caterpillar. So when we are trying to achieve this, we shouldn't try to just put the skills that are just gonna create a fast caterpillar. We need to really evolve and make sure that, you know, the people who are beneficiaries of the skills, they evolve and they thrive into the economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, DDG. Yeah, so before we round off, especially around how do we implement this, let me check with the audience if there are some questions or concerns. Maybe there's somebody sitting there who's really, really concerned or who has some questions to ask to the panel, or a question. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 or 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. I just have one short question. What is the danger, or what are the risks if we do not have a digitally skilled population by, say, 2030? Scare us a little, motivate us to make this a priority, because my concern is that we know it is important, and some of us in this room even know why it is important, but there's a population out there that seemingly doesn't care. And that's why I'm asking the question, what are these risks? What are these problems that we will experience if we do not have an upskill or a digitally skilled population by a period of 2030 perhaps?
Thank you. I think I'll throw that question to, I'm in a safe space because I'm just coordinating. I know that business is quite critical in this ecosystem. So maybe Andy can take that question, but also government, eh? So DDG can also respond. Just briefly, Andy, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Great comment, question. We will alienate ourselves from the rest of the global market if we don't transform digitally and build digital skills, and we cannot afford to do that. And we will also deny ourselves the opportunity for internal growth, because for most people, we need digital access to interact with each other and engage socially and economically just at a local level. And so the consequence of not moving faster than we are and at faster scale than we are is untenable, and it shouldn't be an option. If I'll give an example, one clarity. So you referred to a sector master plan. These master plans are developed by sectors of the economy to drive growth, specific objectives. The development of digital skills is a key enabler of most of those master plans. So we're just talking through the lens of certain sectors. If we fail to do this, we'll fail to enable the growth we're talking about. You know, and the knock-on impact is today, and it continues forever.
Sure. Thank you. DDG.
No, thanks, Rema. Okay, I think also to add on what you just said, and you were to understand that the technology is coming in very fast, and if we are not looking on empowering, you know, the citizens to be able to be tech savvy, then you'll end up actually losing quite a significant amount of the population in terms of, you know, that digital divide, you know. So it's one of the things that we're trying to address as well, to make sure that, you know, people are not completely displaced. And we've seen the presentation that was done here yesterday, you know, of the impacts of AI, you know. So those technologies, they are here. And there is no way that you're gonna say, no, we're not gonna adopt those technologies because they are here and they are improving the efficiency. So the best way to do is to make sure that you skill the nation and make sure that the nation is actually ready to be able to take even new jobs that might actually emerge from this technological evolution that we're going through. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know if other panelists would like to say something about that, but yeah, okay.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether colleagues and those in the room might remember a program that government did many years ago, I think in early 2000s. It was called the Karikude Mass Literacy Campaign. And that was a legacy project because we got out of the starting blocks too late. Many of our previous generation didn't get the opportunity to go to school to get a basic education. Look at where it has left the country. So if you miss this opportunity with digital skills, we will be worse off as a country than ever before. The pace, and many of you guys have done the research on this, the pace at which the world and the digital space is changing, unfortunately, my parents won't be able to keep up. Your parents won't be able to keep up. Our children, our grandchildren won't be able to keep up. And South Africa won't become the competitive nation that we want it to be when it comes to innovation and the technological advancements and the future problems that you want to solve. Because it's not just about here and now and addressing the current digital skills gap, but it's also about looking to the future and how ready or prepared we are to face those new challenges. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm not sure if there's another question or comment. I see a hand over there.
Thank you, Chairperson. My question is directed to Prof. Collier. Thank you for that quite insightful presentation. I just want to find out, you proposed 3 areas or ways of implementation, and the first one being the embedding it into policy and law as well as regulatory frameworks. And there was a specific reference to NEDLAC. I just wanted to check, has the process started to speak to NEDLAC, or are you just proposing it as one of the ways that still need to be done? If you could just outline that for me. Thank you. Sure.
So skills development and changes in the world of work relating to it's part of an ongoing discussion there, but there are processes underway. So the framework itself, I can't speak to whether or not the framework is within the NEDLAC space, but for me, it needs to be in the NEDLAC space, and it needs to be in the spaces where retrenchments or sectoral changes around, fundamental shifts in the jobs that are currently happening within a sector to what jobs we're going to need within that sector. So if that's not informed by a skills framework, a coherent, and that, the idea of it's much more disruptive. So there are processes underway in NEDLAC now, currently dealing with changes to the world of work. And the point I was trying to make is that this should be embedded in those discussions. Whether or not it currently is, I can't answer that question. But it should be in that space. But maybe, and just in terms of what are the dangers, I think if we're not having this discussion, so without having a framework and, without taking this on board, and I also had in the slide, but what I didn't speak about is that it might involve trade-offs, and it might involve, because if it is going to lead to job losses, my point about this is that the danger, of it's not just about being alienated from the international environment or not being able to take advantage. It fundamentally undermines any possibilities we have of addressing inequality, poverty. And so, the ideas around social cohesion, social justice just really, shift further away from us. And so the danger really is one of social cohesion and social unrest, not being able to, and within that NEDLAC space, that's where trade unions can make those concessions. They can, concede that we need reskilling to take place, that, this is a long-term process, but without those plans, and by master plan, I'm not meaning the big sector master plan, but, over 5 years, what is our sector going to look like? So what are the skills we need? And without integrating that into it, we miss that opportunity and I hope I've answered your question. The extent to which it's currently embedded in those discussions, I think, is probably lacking, which is precisely why it needs to be, in my view, elevated in terms of being a part of the regulatory structure, so that it can become embedded in those processes and those ongoing discussions, because it's a contested space and not everybody is going to be on board. And that's where I also think the observation from, there wasn't a gap in the strategy. The strategy precisely says that there need to be these further discussions and implementation plans and documents, that are so I think the strategy speaks well and provides the space for this framework, but they're both part of and I think it does need, in the world of work at least, it needs to be explored much more. It needs to be on the table as part of the discussion. Otherwise, it becomes a contested collective bargaining space. Trade unions, refuse to give up. They're protecting workers who currently have jobs, so they might be reluctant to embrace the idea of new skills and new forms of work if they see losses and job losses. And so it's really, for me, it must form, although the structure itself is not about that, it must inform those discussions, and it provides the space for a more rational bargaining space. Sorry, I'm rambling again. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. I can see she's nodding, so you have clearly answered the question. And yeah, so I think just as we approach closing this session, I just would like us to also note that labor, social partners are important, all of them. I'm sure in the future we should engage labor, but as far as I know, it is not yet in NEDLAC. Dr. Leona, I think we're not yet there, but we will make sure that it is taken along that path. And yeah, and going forward, South Africa is known to develop these nice documents and nice policies and all that, but they never get implemented. They just sit there and gather dust, and other nations perhaps even rule them out and use them, and they overtake us. So I just want to check very quickly, just in under 1 minute, for each of the panelists, if we have to implement this, what should we do? What should we do, and how should we go about that? Let me start with Prof. and followed by Andy. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think, and again, it speaks to one of the strategy's goals around awareness. You really need to create awareness, and I think, it's about awareness at all levels. It's at a national level, it's at a sectoral level. So from, the world of work perspective, the obvious places would be NEDLAC, would be the bargaining councils, would be enrolling Chamber of Commerce, and elevating it at a policy level, which might be through gazetting it or through adopting it and having this aligned with the strategy. I'm sorry, I might have exceeded my minute.
Thank you. Andy?
Chair, I think in our respective areas of involvement and control, we need to be looking at how do we build that awareness, how do we encourage those who are already using the platform to continue and advocate, how do we encourage those not using it to see the value in it, how do we align our programs, how do we do that across the value chain, and then critically, and you've heard it today, and I think this platform is fantastic, is that the collaboration, the dialogue between the role players, yourselves, DCDT, QCTO, business, social partners, that needs to continue, because as it's been mentioned, it's a journey. We're gonna find our way over time, but we have a framework, we have direction, we have will, we have the support as has been articulated. We need to get on with it, keep talking to each other, help each other move forward on this. I think all the role players bring the assets to do that to the table. So yeah, I think it's just action that we need to pursue now and awareness.
Thank you. From the QCTO side.
And thank you, CEO. I think the buzzword for this week, and it was reiterated last night in your keynote address, is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. The QCTO is ready. As we speak, our framework makes provision for it. So it's a matter of speaking to our principals in terms of the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, and drive it from a skills perspective. Together, I know that the Department of Communication and Technologies will also support that, because ultimately it will drive towards the same purpose of ensuring that our populace are digitally literate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. DDG, you spoke about the creation of a forum as well, maybe as a way to go forward, but how can the framework be implemented from your point of view as a start within the DCDT or with the other stakeholders?
No, thanks, Trevor. I think from the implementation point of view, Trevor, I think there are already some mechanisms that have been started, because I believe you were part of, all the consultations that we did from the, the implementation plan for the digital skills, So I think some of the partners that are also prevalent on this framework, there are some of the partners that we've already engaged in there. But I think the important thing is just to make sure that we can pull everybody together now and say that, okay, this is the direction that we're taking. Let's make sure that we pull together and make sure that at least we can have some impact. And also, Mr. Ramitra, you'll understand that from the department's point of view, we do have a target on the medium term of 2.5 million, and we're still far from that. So I think it's time, at least this financial year, to make sure that we can have, through this framework, some serious impact that we can make, and make sure that at least we can try, to break, at least come closer to that, the target that we've been set, and that is part of, the government mandate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those inputs. I think Leona, you've been making some notes there, and clearly the 2.5 million that DDG is talking about, it's 2.5 million people trained in digital skills by 2025. So it's quite hectic. So and I believe that this framework can also help in terms, because there's a lot happening already. It's just that it's disjointed. It can help as a data harvester, or I call it that, data collector of some sort, just to get to know what's happening. And the aim is also to make it an online platform that can be easily accessible by any stakeholder, and and to have specific times when updates happen in such a way that it keeps on being updated continuously. So it is something that is going to live with us forever going forward, because digital technologies are here to stay. They are not going anywhere, and they will keep changing even at a faster pace. So with that, until we talk frankly again, thank you.
very close. The last thing I need to say is thank you very much. I think you will agree with me that it was a very interesting discourse. It was wonderful to see the different perspectives, but most of all, I think there's agreement that there is the need and the place for such a framework, that it requires collaboration. But I think what I got from this today, it also needs careful thinking and planning in terms of how we go about this. So last from my side, thank you very much to all the panelists for being here this morning and contributing to the discourse. It's really important that we keep one another on our toes and that we don't get overconfident in what we know or what we think we know, but that we keep this conversation robust, as you said, because in the end, it's about taking all sectors together in upskilling South African citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Leona, and thanks for the wonderful team or panel that was here. Me being the, I understand I belong in the third generation that was born in the 80s. That's me revealing my age. So we are not like Gen Z, who everything goes to the internet. However, a quick search of the number of students in universities last year, thanks to Career Portal, points to almost 1.1 million students. So on the 2.5 target, if every student is catered for, at least 1.1 is already there. And then the remaining 1.4 million, this is me being the lazy one and trying to be practical. You know, there's one institution that we've kind of forgotten about. It's not that we've forgotten, we only go there like, it's like the post office. They call it a library, and librarians are usually the people who are super skilled in digital issues. How about we empower the librarians in every community through the digital skills and try to see if we can introduce weekly trainings that people can walk in, get the training, and I'm assuming this is where the department comes in to say, facilitate that exercise and that transition. So yeah, this is just me blabbing and trying to see how we can get to the 2.5, because that's a big number. That's a big number that has to be met by 2025. Okay, having said that, thanks panel. Thanks for the thought-provoking ideas. If I may jump back, Annalie, I'm not sure if Annalie is in attendance or it's online. While Annalie is planning, preparing, organizing, and all the other words that can be used. Matthew? Kindly. So this is me trying to ask favor from the next presenter, Naomi, to come on board and see if she can present first while we're trying to figure out Annalie's absence. Luckily, yesterday with the delays, we ended up realizing along the way, the program just fit nicely. The group that was coming from Cape Town made it 3 hours in and they was able to present. So yes, things will fit in. So we'll still be looking for Annalie.